So, to start off, I just want to preface that this story is very unbelievable if you don't have an open mind. This is all a true story that happened to me a few years back, and I will never forget it. I was a young, impressionable kid at the time, and I didn't realize I had some sense of being open to the paranormal. It started off slow with me not being able to sleep at night. I had the feeling that someone was in the room with me, not necessarily standing over me, but somewhere in the room. Do you know that feeling? You just feel someone's presence there? That's exactly how I was feeling constantly. I tried avoiding my room at all costs, sleeping over at my friends' houses or staying in my sister's room. It got so bad to the point I wasn't sleeping until the sun came up because I couldn't close my eyes. I was so afraid someone was there, watching me. And of course, nobody believed me. I suffered alone for weeks with little sleep. I most definitely could have been going insane from sleep deprivation. It wasn't until my sister started experiencing things then I knew I wasn't insane. She told me that when I wasn't home, it felt like someone was coming into her room at night, looking for me. She said it was the scariest feeling she ever had. Now, one person believed me. After that, it started getting a little worse. One night, I woke up with my hand on my forehead with a feeling that someone was holding it. It was starting to interact with me instead of just watching me. Another night, I woke up with my blanket over my head like something was smothering me. I don't normally move in my sleep, so it wasn't me moving around or accidentally putting a blanket over my head. After gaining some credibility, my mom started worrying for both me and my sister. She called a psychic because she can't necessarily call anyone else but them in a situation like this. The lady was spot on. She told my mom, and I quote, "Your daughter is being haunted by a relative from the 1800s, and her name is Nadine. She thinks her daughter is depressed just like she was at the time, and she's trying to keep her safe. She holds her hand at night to keep them from taking her away." I came to the conclusion back in the 1800s, depression wasn't treated how it was treated today. She was probably treated very poorly and she didn't want me to have the same experience as her, but the funny part is, I wasn't depressed at all. So I don't know what the hell she was doing. After we confirmed that I was being haunted, everything got even worse than it already was. One night, I was sleeping in my sister's room, and we were scared as usual. All of a sudden, we heard a very loud bang, or explosion in my room. I tried to justify it and say, "Oh, I think it was just one of my posters that fell down." Then, we see a ball of light shoot down the hallway. It was a giant orb with glowing white light on the inside and a tail of an almost blue smoky light following it. My sister and I both witnessed it. We were so scared to move to go tell someone that we eventually just fell asleep. The next day, we told my mom, and she told us the most startling thing ever. She said the weirdest thing that happened to me last night. I woke up and an angel came into my room and she said, "I'm going to bless your daughter's room." And then she walked over to the room, set off a ball of light that exploded and cleansed the room. And then I fell asleep. We witnessed a ball of light, so my mom wasn't dreaming. After that incident, nothing happened again. I was staying the night at my grandma's house one night. I was around the age 14. She lived in a very small neighborhood out in the boonies. I loved going to stay with my grandparents as a kid. It was so peaceful throughout the day, but at night, their house always scares me. It was so old. I heard many stories from my mom, aunts, and uncles that scared me. Her house is definitely a pest, and I believed it was haunted. One night, I was laying in the guest bedroom watching TV. It was only 9:30 or 10 p.m. There were no doors in the guest room. The entrance to my room was just an archway that was leading to the living room. My grandma would get mad if I turned on any lights, so her house was always pitch black at night. I would leave the TV on, however. At my house, I only slept in darkness. Any light on normally would drive me nuts, but at my grandma's, it was too scary without the TV being on. I was laying there in a twin-sized bed. It was in the center of the room. I was facing the wall with the archway to the living room. The TV sat in the space near the archway to the right. I could see into the living room and it was pitch black. A commercial had come on, and I glanced into the living room. I felt creeped out. Then, all of a sudden, an orange figure peered its head around the wall into the archway and it hissed at me. It had long pointy ears, almost like a cat, and long fangs. It was like a mist or fog, so its eyes and mouth were just holes that were transparent. I was frozen. I could feel my muscles tensing up. They felt like they were going to burst out of my skin. My toes curled so tight I could not move. I was petrified. I've never seen something like that before. I was frozen solid for 2 minutes or so, but when I finally could move, I ran to the house phone and called my uncle, sobbing, begging her to come pick me up. My aunt had told me to let my grandma know that I was leaving. My grandma's bedroom was located at the very back of the house. I was way too scared to go anywhere except the room I was staying in. Once I saw my aunt pull up from the window, I flew out of the house. My grandma woke up later that night and had no clue where I was. She called both her neighbors and then called my aunt. I got into trouble for leaving without saying anything. I'll never forget that experience. I have more from my grandma's house, but that was the worst. I still have no idea what that thing was, but I know I saw it. I still remember that high-pitched hiss. When I was a child, I was pretty sure my home was haunted, but I didn't want to scare anyone, so I didn't say anything. I moved out years ago, but recently my brother told me out of the blue that my childhood bedroom is definitely haunted. I asked him how I knew, and he said it just was. When I was 6 or 7, I saw a disassembled hand coming out of my closet. It freaked me out, but I brushed it off by telling myself that kids see things that aren't there sometimes and decided to ignore it and not say anything. There would also be days where an abnormal amount of flies would suddenly appear in my room overnight. They'd stay in my room and disappear fairly quick the same day. I also had a period in elementary school where I had terrible insomnia in that room. I wasn't scared, I just simply couldn't sleep. My parents finally decided to have me sleep in the guest bedroom, and I was fine. Eventually, I moved back into my bedroom and didn't have that problem anymore. I always avoided being alone in that house, especially at night, and I thought I was just scared of being alone, but I found out after I moved out that wasn't the case. It's just the house that scares me. Anytime I was alone, I felt watched or someone was directly behind me. On one of the few nights I agreed to house sit and didn't have anyone stay with me, I heard loud footsteps in the attic. My dad was constantly in the crawl-spacing attic doing home repairs, so I ruled out some stranger secretly living in our home. There was another time a few years ago that my brother and I were visiting and my dog started growling at the corner again. All of our animals interacted strangely and often with this corner. I jokingly said that something about it being haunted, but immediately followed up with, "Just kidding, it's not real." And at the exact moment I said that, a heavy painting in the corner was picked up and thrown hard against the ground. The nail in the wall was fine, the wire it hung from was fine, the wall was fine, and it hadn't moved in any way. I quickly apologized and promised to never taunt it again. I've lived in several haunted and non-haunted homes now, and now all of the haunted ones have a very heavy, not in a bad way, just neutral energy, just like my childhood home.